The scrappage policy was announced in March this year, and its proposals, which will incentivize people to get rid of their old vehicles, have been in the public domain. But today Prime Minister Modi has officially launched it, and there is now a timeline in place. So by April 2022, all government vehicles which are above 15 years of age will have to be completely scrapped. For heavy vehicles, that deadline will be by 2023, and for personal vehicles, that deadline will kick in from June 2024. So what exactly will happen? If you have a vehicle which is above 15 years or 20 years, depending on whether it's commercial or personal, it will have to undergo a fitness test. And once this fitness test is passed, if your vehicle is still in a situation to be run, you will have to pay possibly an additional tax on it. Suppose your vehicle fails this fitness test, it will be taken off the road and you will have to take it to a scrap yard where you will be incentivized to buy a new vehicle. The incentives are proposed in 2 or 3 manners. One is you get something from the value of the scrap when you go to the scrap yard. The second is that the dealership you go to, or the new vehicle that you go to buy, that car maker and that dealership will offer you a discount. The government wants a discount of up to 5%. Car makers want to make it a little less, so that bargain is still going on. The third incentive proposed is supposed to be a deduction or a waiver in road taxes of up to 25%. More and more incentives may come if state governments come on board. Another thing that is being suggested is that there should be some reduction of GST if you go with a scrappage certificate to buy a new vehicle. The overall idea is that there will be less polluting newer vehicles on the roads. This means that emissions will be less, better technology will be used, and of course it's an incentive for the auto industry if more and more people are buying newer vehicles. The other upside that is being talked about is a recycling of steel. We actually import scrapped steel right now because there's such a shortage of that raw material. Why don't we just create it internally? But this all could be easier said than done. So will the scrappage policy in its current form really make a dent and move the needle for the industry? What are the challenges up ahead? To speak on this, I am joined today by Mr. Pawan Goenka. He is a former MD of Mahindra & Mahindra. I am also speaking today with Gaurav Vangal, Associate Director of LV Forecasting, IHS Markit. Vinkesh Gulati, President of FADA, is with us on the show, as is Arindam Guha, Partner Government Public Services at Deloitte India. So welcome to all of you and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Mr. Goenka, the scrappage policy and its proposed incentives have been in the public domain since about March this year. Finally, the Prime Minister has officially launched it and it will start in phases. So it starts with scrappage of government vehicles first and goes up to personal vehicles after June 2024. At its current stage, pace and in its current form, do you think that the scrappage policy will actually move the needle in making sure that we have less polluting, fitter and younger cars on Indian roads?
I think it would, Tamanna. It would take a little while to get everything sort of get aligned and get started. And there are several pieces that have to come together. The first thing, as the Honorable Prime Minister said today, that the scrappage is not based on age, but based on the fitness of the vehicle. That means India will have to have many more centers for fitness testing, which is beginning to happen now. Second is there has to be centers for scrappage. And today, I think many MOUs were signed for creating those scrappage centers. So that has come in place now. Third is that formally the states have to start announcing the incentives that the Honorable PM alluded to today, such as road tax and registration tax, that have not been formally announced yet by the states because that's a state subject. And the fourth is that there's some kind of deterrent that will come in case of the vehicles not meeting fitness test, and therefore there will be much higher green tax or a cess applied. When you put it all together, then I think there will be a clear incentive for those who have older vehicles which are not fit to be on the road, to start scrapping them and convert that to new vehicles. And of course, as we know very well, once the new vehicles come on the road, it ticks many boxes. The new vehicles will be replacing a very old polluting vehicle, an old vehicle that is consuming too much of crude oil, and clearly it spurs the economy by bringing in more manufacturing and more GST collection for the government.
You know, the biggest challenge, sir, seems to be on the question of incentives, because you need many different stakeholders to pitch in and want to give a higher incentive. So whether it's state governments willing to let go of some taxes, or whether it's OEMs willing to give discounts. Do you think that's a big problem? Because from what we understand, OEMs are not on board with the 5% discount for a new vehicle after a scrappage certificate that the central government envisages.
Yeah, so obviously this will be a little bit of trial and error. Clearly, if large discounts are announced on day one, then there will be a fairly high incentive to want to scrap the vehicles. Without very large incentives, it will probably take some time. And as time goes on, if this scheme does not catch on, if the people owning the old vehicles do not find it attractive enough to scrap, there may be some incentive that will have to come in. Like you said, that the OEMs simply cannot give 5% kind of discount because that will eat significantly into whatever margin they make. I believe that SIAM is working on what is it the OEMs can provide, and will be submitting their proposal to the government very soon. And there may be a need at some point of time to start looking at some kind of GST benefit coming for buying a vehicle based on a scrappage vehicle. So we will have to see all of this, how it comes together. Math has to be done. But I would like to say that the scrappage policy has been in the making for quite some time. This is a very good first step. And I think it's going to start creating impact. And for the impact to become much larger, there may be a need, and we'll have to wait and see. There may be a need for us to put in a little bit more money on the table, coming from state government, from central government, and maybe from OEMs.
Yeah, because you need to incentivize people to give up their old vehicles. We are a nation of jugaad at the end of the day, and nothing goes to waste. Talking about
I just
impacting input costs, that's one of the points that has been made. That, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a point here that once the fitness becomes a requirement, that will automatically become a deterrent for carrying on with the vehicles that are not fit to be on the road. And I think to not allow the vehicles that are not fit to be on the road to ply on the road is good in itself. Forget about everything else. You don't want vehicles that are not fit to be on the road to continue to ply. So therefore, if nothing else, it will give incentive for car owners to maintain their vehicles very well. Otherwise, they will not pass the fitness test and will have to be scrapped.
Right, Mr. Gulati, let me begin by getting your sense on the scrappage policy. Now, not much has changed from what we know since March. What has actually happened today is an official announcement that the ball will be set rolling and we will have a scrappage policy. There is some timeline about starting with government vehicles and personal vehicles all the way in June 2024. But the big question remains the incentives, isn't it? What needs to be done to make sure that people actually want to go ahead and scrap their old vehicles?
So Tamanna, agreed. This is a March circular which our Prime Minister again announced that. But one thing what has changed is there are a lot of interest from big manufacturers or the bodies to come up and set up the scrappage yards or scrappage infrastructure. So which will lead to a change in future. So even today, like when a customer comes to us for an old vehicle which cannot be re-registered or renewed, we normally send it to a scrap dealer, which starts from 15,000 to some 25,000 bucks for a car, which will change slowly when such big players will come and they are able to reuse the metal from the scrap vehicle. So automatically the price what we will get from these scrap yards will at least be 1.5 times to double. So that will help the customer on the side. So I'm talking from the customer side. So a car which fetches 20,000 will easily fetch 40,000. And this is very clear as per the research that the steel can be reused, the other material from the car. So around 90% of the items can be reused. And if they are reused in the manufacturing of the new cars, the new car's cost will also come down. The input cost will also come down, which means if this happens in a big way, in turn, the final selling price of a new car also goes down. So no doubt you are right. There is nothing new. There's no discounts. So there is a tentative discount. What they have expected that manufacturers should come up and give some 5% discount. No doubt, we are already giving an exchange bonus to any customer who comes and sells it, but sell a vehicle to us. But obviously, there is no specific bonus for a scrap car. So any vehicle which comes to it, if it is scrapped or even if it is gives to us as a used vehicle, we do give a discount of around 2% to 3% or 4%. That is already there. So once this process is implemented 2023 for some categories and 24 for other categories, I feel then OEMs will come up and chip in some more discounts to motivate customers to come in and give their old vehicles, scrap their vehicles, and on the certificate give them some special discounts.
Yeah, so the OEMs right now are negotiating. The government wants a 5% discount. They maybe want to give 1 or 2%. We'll have to see where that settles. Gaurav, what are the challenges you see to actually make the scrappage policy work in a country that is so keen on, you know, I'll use the word recycling, but even very old, highly polluting vehicles outside the big cities are seen being used in quite a large number. Why should people make the effort to go and scrap these vehicles if there's no clear incentive? And is that the real question? Why is there no clear incentive in place even several months after the policy was first announced?
So I think your point is quite valid, and I heard about the scrappage policy. The first thing came to my mind is the same question: why anybody would go to the market and they say that I would like to scrap the vehicle? The only thing which came out is the 5% from the from the scrappage policy, which we are already getting it. If you go out and scrap your vehicles to the unorganized sector, you're already getting 5% of the amount if you have a 5 lakh rupees car. The second factor, what they have mentioned, that the ball is in the court of the OEMs, whether they are going to or not, it depends on them. The third is the state subject. When they are saying they are looking for the road tax reduction, I think this is a state tax. State subject. It's not the central subject. So what I believe here, that there is nothing. The only thing what government do is the enforcement. They have to enforce this. Now again, this is a voluntary scheme. It's not a mandatory scheme. Even though you are saying that it is going to happen after 15 years or 20 years, what is now? If I'm sitting in Delhi, you have to scrap your diesel vehicle after 10 years. You have to scrap your petrol vehicles after 15 years. What is the difference? There's not if I'm sitting in Delhi, right? So the point is, I don't have any incentive to go out and do. The state has to enforce it. At one point, it's a good step in right direction when we wanted to kick it off, but not great.
So, you know, the Prime Minister today said in his speech, Arindam, let me come to you with this question. The Prime Minister in his speech said today that the basis will be fitness of the vehicle, not age of the vehicle. Now, this is contradictory in the sense that what we know right now about the proposed policy is that there's a 15-year and 20-year cutoff for personal vehicles and commercial vehicles. Does this tell you that perhaps the fitness test will be done earlier in some cases, and what could that criteria be?
That's right. You see, the fitness centers are a key component of the entire policy. And the points of the vehicles at which the fitness test will be conducted, I think that is one issue which is to be fleshed out. And depending on the outcome of the fitness test, I think there will also be there are already in the policy, there are strong disincentives for any old vehicle owner to continue with owning that vehicle. Because, there's a clear sort of a directive to the state governments to increase road tax and vehicle re-registration charges beyond a certain period of time. So that's the disincentive part of it. Coupled with that, we have the incentives which are built in, which are in fact, two or three types. For example, when you take the old vehicle to a registered vehicle scrapping facility, they are supposed to issue you a scrapping certificate and also pay you a certain percentage of the price of a equivalent new vehicle as some sort of a compensation. So that's one sort of incentive for the old vehicle owner. Secondly, again, I think all of us know that vehicles are part of the concurrent list in the Constitution. It would depend on the state government, but nevertheless, we see many states joining this particular policy and bringing in suitable incentives around registration costs and road taxes, for the vehicles which are replacing the old vehicles. So that's the second incentive. And the third incentive, of course, which is dependent on the auto OEMs, are what kind of discounts they offered based on the vehicle scrapping certificate. Finally, I think one needs to understand that these vehicle scrapping certificates are transferable. So let's say if you have an owner who, let's say, has reached that age where he no longer wants to operate a vehicle, it is possible for him to transfer the scrapping certificate to another person who's desirous of owning a new vehicle. So I think there are quite a few innovations which need to be factored in. But of course, I agree with others on the panel that since it's a concurrent subject, it would depend a lot on the respective state governments in terms of whether this policy, to what extent it is implemented around the country.
There seems to be a carrot and stick over here to get people to go and get rid of their old vehicles. Vinkesh, which do you think will ultimately work? The carrot of discounts and incentives to purchase a new vehicle, or the stick of higher payments and taxes if your vehicle fails a fitness test or becomes older and older?
So I feel both the things will go side by side as of today. And till the time this policy is voluntary, the carrot will be more important to motivate people to come out and scrap their vehicles. So obviously, once the infrastructure is up, the manufacturers are willing to come up and pitch in the scheme amount, then I am expecting the government to make it mandatory. And like Gaurav said, so Delhi has a peculiar thing where 10 and 15 year goes around, but overall all over India there is no such limit of working of a vehicle. If your vehicle is drivable, you can renew your vehicle and drive till 20-25 years. There is no such restriction or illegality in that. So overall there are a lot of vehicles on the road, like you said, in upcountry market, and I'm expecting once a bigger infrastructure comes in, the price of the scrap vehicle goes up. So with the and another thing, what like Mr. Arindam said, there are some as this is a concurrent subject, there are some things where states are coming in. So green tax is one thing which states are willing to put in on the old vehicle. Second thing is fitness. So fitness, I feel, will start after 8th year. So it's not a deterrent. It's just a check like a pollution norms. You do it every 3 months or 6 months. Fitness will be once a year. And the way the fitness infrastructure is coming, the government is planning that private partnership fitness centers will come in. That would also not be a big deterrent, but it will check what is the quality of the vehicle. And see, if I talk about today, 20 years means we are talking of BS0. Those vehicles will not be able to continue even with better quality of service and even whatever fitness we do. But going further with the quality of BS4, BS6 or even BS3 products, if you maintain well, fitness will never be an issue. So till the time it is not mandatory, I feel both the things put together, carrot will also work, and some support from all the segment of this industry will have to come forward to make this successful.
Gaurav, give me an industry perspective. For the longest time, the auto industry has been saying, bring in the scrappage policy. It's very important for us to expand our size as well and make sure that new vehicles are on the road. In its current form, from what has been proposed so far, of course, a lot of things are not final yet. Do you think that the scrappage policy right now is enough to make a real difference to the auto industry?
If I have to answer it straightly, no. Because the point is that till the time what we have already mentioned, that there's a good incentive coming out of it, nobody is going to do it. But yes, one thing is very clear here, that the government has tried something. They are developing the ecosystem. So creating a scrappage yards. Then they are reducing the raw material pricing by the input cost, what they are going to do, the recycling of it. So this is going to help industry. That is very clear. Okay. And the best thing which I liked about this policy, that they are going to generate the employment, and we are going to learn the new skill sets. The new technologies are going to come to India. The new processes are going to India. That is going, in the long term, it is going to help us a lot. But in the short term, it will have a lesser impact. But in the long term, when the Prime Minister has already mentioned it's a circular economy, that time I think after one cycle we will definitely see a good boost coming.
Absolutely. It's a beginning. It's going to take time to actually incentivize people to get rid of their old vehicles. One of the biggest reasons to do that, and of course we can recycle steel, import costs come down for the auto industry, it'll create more jobs, etc. But I believe one of the big reasons we definitely should do this is because it gets highly polluting vehicles off the road, and that is truly the need of the hour. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the discussion this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.